Okay, so Brinleigh, we have educators doing this training and doing this professional development course, and we've asked them to do an interview with a teen in their life. But I know that there is probably this understandable temptation to just skip over that, go to the next module because everyone's fitting this in to their really busy lives. But I think we have personally been so impacted by doing interviews, and I'm wondering what you would want people to know about this assignment that we've given them, and what it was like for you actually doing an interview.
Yeah, it was an incredible experience that I also wanted to maybe just skip at first. And I'm so glad and grateful that I didn't, because it was honestly like almost life-changing without sounding weird about it. I spoke with my sister, who I have known since she was born. That's how most sisters are. And I realized that like I'd never really talked to her. And it made me think a lot about the pivot of assuming to asking, because I just assumed so much about her. We didn't grow up together. She's significantly younger than me. And I'd always put myself in this kind of like friendly aunt role. And I, as such, just like offered her information that I felt like she would benefit from, or assumed what was going on in her life, or posited questions in a way that were just there to like get us through and check off the box that we'd talked that week. And in doing this interview, I got to go in depth with her and learn about her experience using digital technologies and being on social media, and her own kind of like mediation practices and dealing with challenges and the benefits and how she thought about them. And I learned so much about her through the process that it was really incredible. And I thought very deeply about what that meant for both of us, I think, afterwards. But it is tempting to skip because it's maybe 20 minutes, 15, depending on the teen you're talking to, or an hour that I spent. And, you know, we are in a different time zone, and I'm a mom of 2 toddlers. But I will never regret that time. I will only regret the time that I haven't spent doing that in the past. And I wish I could look at my past self as she was growing up. Now she's 18, and I wish I'd done more of this. So it was a really valuable exercise and skill that I wish I'd learned long before, like this week.
It's like a dream when you actually create an assignment and it's helpful for people. But Can you tell us a little bit about how you set up the interview? Like, what did you tell her you were going to be doing? And what did you actually ask her during the interview?
Yeah. So I said, I'm taking a class and we're supposed to talk to young people about their experiences with technology. I don't know, maybe she thought of like a microwave. I don't know what she thought about when she thought about tech. And I asked if I could interview her. And she was like all awkward. Oh, okay. I guess so. We went through the pseudonym kind of exercise. What does she want to be called? She thought that was silly and funny, but we came up with something. And then I said, okay, I'm just going to start asking you some questions. And I really followed your protocol. I found that very helpful because I was nervous too. But I talked to her on the phone instead of on like a video chat, which for me, I think was a bit more comfortable because I felt like I could actively take notes while still being really, because I was a recruiter for a while. So I'm used to taking notes while talking, but so maybe other people don't feel good with that. But yeah, I used the guide. And then I think what was useful though was because it was semi-structured, I followed leads as they came. So she started telling me about how she had felt bad in certain social media spaces, but she couldn't fully articulate why. But I would just kind of pause and allow her some space and then say something like, can you tell me more about that? Or can you elaborate on why you said that? Instead of saying, so social media makes you feel bad, give me reasons how, or whatever. I was more curious. And I think I learned that a lot from you. Is like, you often say like, I'm curious, or I wonder. And I tried to kind of mimic that in my interview with her.
Yeah. I mean, I've been so influenced by the idea of the pedagogy of listening and really listening for understanding, and how getting curious and really wondering is so game changing. It just changes the way that we enter a conversation and people feel it.
Yeah.
And they respond to it, I think.
Yeah, they do. They do. People love to talk about themselves. And we've always known this, but especially young people, I think they're so often unseen and just not listened to. And to really just ask these thoughtful questions and want to hear more about their point of view, they just light up. And it's such a gift. And it's such a gift to watch, too. It was really emotional for me.
But I think it does require not only getting curious, but also being willing to like check our own judgment, which it sounds like you really did during that conversation. And she felt that you were not in a space of judging her, but really of trying to understand. Mm-hmm. What is something that you learned about her tech or social media experience that really stood out to you?
Yeah, I mean, I was shocked that she didn't even mention social media when I asked her what technologies she's using every day. She says she uses it all day, every day. And then she cited for homework, for reading, for listening to music. She told me all about how she upgraded to a Spotify premium account because her job at, Trader Joe's allowed her to pay for it. But she never once mentioned TikTok or Instagram or any of the other major apps I thought she would. I was shocked. And I said, I'm shocked. Like, what's happening here? Tell me more. And that was when the conversation really started to take off, because I learned about times that she'd felt good on social media. I learned about times where she might have felt a little bit not great on social media. And both of those were just so illuminating and interesting that there was so much to dig into. We did literally talk until I had to go to bed.
So you said that she didn't even mention social media. Was that because social media is not relevant for her, or because she was holding back for some reason? What did you learn?
Yeah, it's not as relevant for her as it used to be. She checks it maybe a couple times a day. She has made a lot of good friends at her new university that she's going to through social accounts, like on Instagram. But otherwise, it's definitely not as prevalent. She reads, she listens to music on her phone or on her laptop. She's just not, that's not what she's doing when she's on her phone. So when, as an adult, I'm looking at her going, oh, she's on her phone, right? The eye roll, the judgment, that kind of assuming. I never thought to say, what are you doing? Like, I never looked and asked.
I know that a big takeaway for you when we were talking about the interviews with our class group was just this feeling of empathy, but also this feeling like we had left her to her own devices in so many ways. Mm-hmm. And you've worked in tech for a long time, and you're an educator. You think about these things. So it just made me feel like I resonate with this. Like, even those of us who think about these issues all the time can miss the opportunity to show up and ask questions and also help strategize in that coaching role. I'm just curious, like, what stands out to you about that part of your conversation?
It was so eye-opening. So I'm her sister. I am, as you said, in all of these roles that expose me to information about digital literacy for young people day in and day out. And she couldn't tell me anything about kind of the attention economy, about what a click or a like means, how creators or apps make their money in order to keep supplying these products. She had entirely figured out her own way to kind of mediate her well-being in the context of maybe some light cyberbullying, for lack of a better word, in, kind of late middle school, early high school. But she solved it for herself. She'd figured out how to make herself feel better. I didn't know she was going through that. I'd never checked in. Mm-hmm. And I hadn't taught her about how people might act when they're behind, a keyboard, how they might be more willing to treat somebody poorly when they're not looking at them in the face. I hadn't taught her about how to protect herself mentally from things that might be hard in those environments that are equally hard offline. But in addition to just like kind of basic digital literacy stuff, I'd completely missed it. And I was so surprised and disappointed. And I think that's now really become like a cause of mine, is how can we normalize and encourage kind of compulsory digital literacy in our school systems. Kids are using these devices more than they're doing a lot of other things, and yet we're not teaching them about them because we're just saying, get off them. And that's just not helpful. I just don't think it's helpful. I see how much she relies on these devices for so many wonderful parts of her life. Reading, music, meeting new friends, like those were all net positives. And just to take it away without then offering her any way to educate herself on like safe use seems really irresponsible.
Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.